You're listening to episode 3 of the Fearless English podcast. Welcome to the Fearless English podcast, where it's all about helping you confidently communicate with anyone without compromising who you are. Let's get started, Fearless Learner. Hello, Fearless Learners, and welcome to this week's episode. I'm super excited for this week's topic because I have invited a guest to speak to me. The main idea here is that we focus on your listening skills and also on vocabulary building. And at the end of this podcast, I'm going to be giving you a mini vocabulary lesson focused on the collocations we used and some extra collocations to help you speak fluently, speak naturally when you're speaking English. Today I have Anna, who is a Gallup certified strength coach, and she also has a master's degree in business, but she's not going to be using her expertise in this episode. Instead, we're going to be talking about all things travel, and I'm excited for you to listen because we had so much fun recording this episode, and I know you're going to learn so much vocabulary, and I hope you enjoy it. Let's meet Anna. Hello, Fearless Learner. Today we have Anna, and we're going to be talking about travel. I am so excited about this topic, and I can't wait to dive in. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Halima.
It's so nice to have you on the podcast. How have you been?
I've been well, thank you. How have you been?
Yeah, I'm good. Things in London have opened up. Things are going back to normal, whatever that means. So I'm excited to talk about like the topic of travel, and I'm excited to just dive straight in. I'm a huge fan of traveling. When was the first time you got on a plane?
Hmm.
How old were you?
The first time I got on a plane, I was in 8th grade. So, what is that,
Okay.
like 13 years old?
Okay, that's cool. I actually I got on the plane when I was 2 years old. I think 2 or 3. That was the first time I got on a plane to go to Saudi Arabia. So I was very young. And when was the first time then you felt like, okay, like I love traveling?
I think I've always, growing up, we did a lot of road trips as a family. We would get in our big Suburban. I live in America, so I don't know if you guys have Suburbans in the UK, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of 5, so we couldn't afford to fly.
Ah,
So we couldn't afford to fly, so we did a lot of camping at state parks in America, and I guess I loved going to different places, but I remember, like, my grandfather is from Alexandria, Egypt, and he would always talk about, "Oh, when you're in high school, I'll take you to Egypt." And so I had a little can of that. I was like, "Ooh, I'm going to save some money." And I'd cut out pictures of the pyramids and I cut out pictures of the Eiffel Tower. And I was going to save this money to go travel with my grandpa. And that never actually ended up working out. But
aw.
when I was in college, I saved up money to go to London. Was the first stop of a multi-city journey with my best
No
friend.
way. That was
Yeah.
the first time you ever no, you said you went on a plane at the age of 13 though. So that wasn't where were you going when you were 13?
To my grandparents' place in Arizona. So not
Okay.
super far. But
Okay,
my
so
first my first international trip, which
okay,
to me is
international.
like the start of my like, oh my goodness, I love traveling, was when I was in college.
Okay, and the first stop was London. How
Yeah.
cool is that? So happy to hear that it was London that like showed you the world. Like where you so you were in your 20s at that time, right?
Yes, I
You
think I
went
was
with your
21.
21.
Yep.
And were you scared to travel? Like what? Like I mean, I can't imagine like what you must have felt like, because a lot of people, I know the culture in the US, I mean, I could be wrong, but from my friends, they say that like some people still don't have passports there because it's such a big country. Like you have everything you need there, like you don't need to go anywhere else. So why did you decide to travel in the first place? Like how did when where did the influence come from?
Again, I think for some reason I always wanted to get out of my house. Like I just wanted to always leave, be gone, and go see places. And so one Christmas, my best friend in high school had come home from college and she said, "Oh, next fall I'm going to study abroad in Spain." And we both looked at each other at the same time as if we had the same idea that was like, let's go 4 weeks early and put together and backpack for 4 weeks. And
No way.
it was so awesome. And I drove back home and I went into my parents' room and they were sleeping. I don't know why I thought I would go into their room, but I went over to my mom's side of the bed and I was like, Linnea and I are going to go backpacking in Europe for 4 weeks this summer. And mom was half asleep and she goes, "How are you going to pay for this?" And I said, "I don't know, but I'm going to get a job." And 3 days later, I had a job working at the Chinese Combo King at the mall and I saved up money.
Oh my goodness, where there's a will, there's a way, they say, right? Um,
Absolutely.
I love that story so much. And then you went to London for like, so the first destination was London. How long did you stay there?
In London, I think it was one night. So my friend is a really good planner, and so we had spent
Mm.
weeks leading up to this and months leading up to this trip, of course, saving money for me and then also planning like which countries do we want to see, which cities do we want to see. And back then the Eurail was really big. So and you had to buy your tickets kind of in advance and plan ahead. So I think in London we were there for one night. We landed and we met up with two friends of hers who were also traveling, and we had the Let's Go Europe travel book. And when we had met with
Ah.
them, we were like, let's meet on this day, which was the day that we landed. And we opened up a map, and on the map was the Buckingham Palace. And
Okay.
we picked a corner of the park, like some random little bush that we were going to meet at a specific time. And it worked. Somehow we all managed to get there at the same time. So, yeah.
How was your experience there? Was it like the first time you got to the I mean the city? Did you feel excited? Could you explain like your feelings? Like do you remember your feelings back then?
I think it was just really cool to be like, oh my goodness, I'm in another country. I just took a plane and then I got on a plane and it flew me over the ocean and now I'm in a city that has so much history and
Yeah.
like, oh, there's Buckingham Palace and the guards with the tall black furry hats, like those are real. That's awesome.
Oh my goodness, what I would give to see you like super excited in that moment. And I can hear you from your voice as well that you almost got like you have that excitement again now. I hope that one day you could revisit London and I could show you around like all the different non-touristy area that I love. But yeah, so what other country did you go to?
So after that, we took the train through what is apparently called the Channel Tunnel, which I have only ever called the Chunnel, Chunnel. And we took the train over to Paris and we were there for one night.
One night. Okay, so you didn't stay long in each city then. You just okay. And you tried to do as many basically touristy things as you could. Okay. So then from London, where did you go next? Do you remember?
Yeah, so London, Paris, and then I want to say I have a journal that I should have dug up for this conversation because I mapped out our entire route. And
Okay.
so we did end up spending a week in Germany, which I was really surprised at because
Mm.
I have like little notes that we had in letters that we had sent back and forth, like, where do you want to go? And where do you not want to go? And I had said, oh, I don't want to go to Germany. And I don't really know why, but Germany was um, really pretty and a lot. I don't know. Our experience was great because one of our friends who we were traveling with, so he had a friend in, I want to say Berlin or Hamburg.
Mm.
We kind of went all over Germany but he had a friend, so it's really fun to stay at someone's house who lived in Germany and
Mm.
actually see the country the way that they would experience it. That was like so fun.
Like when you think about Germany, you don't think of it like, oh, the destination to go to. It's not as like, I guess, like appealing as Paris or London because it's always appearing in movies and people are excited to like one day visit Paris. Oh, like like all these films always depict it as this magical place to visit. But actually, like I think l- every country can be like that, and depending on how you experience it, because it's like if you go to Germany and you just go and check out all the tourist attractions, then that like it doesn't give you that same feeling as if you actually go with someone that lives there. So I can
Yeah.
see how you really got to see the real Germany and like ended up staying there a lot longer than you didn't even want to go there in the first place. Let me tell you about, like, I guess the same similar thing about my how I started traveling. So as long as I can remember, Anna, I've always traveled.
Mm.
It's not something that I don't even remember the first time I was like, oh, like I enjoy traveling. I think it's always been something that I have been exposed to because I like since I was young, and we migrated from, I mean, immigrated from one place to the other. And then when I came to the UK, I didn't really travel much. But then when I went to Egypt to study, after my studies, I decided that I wanted to travel on my own. And at the time, I remember actually not telling anybody about my travel. Like I went with my friend to Turkey, so it was like my first kind of non like parent involvement. So I went to Turkey and then I went to Morocco, and that's when I was like, okay, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, is just keep traveling. And after that I was like, okay, I need to travel more, and I went to India after that by myself, and people are like, oh my god, you went to India all by yourself. Uh and I was like, yeah, like it was fine, like I really enjoyed it. I went to two cities. And then after that I was like, okay, I want to find a job that helps me, like enables my traveling addiction. And so
Mm.
it just went from there. So that's when I was like, okay, I need to find a job, which was English teaching. And I went to Saudi Arabia, and from there I just went all over the world, traveling to from place to place.
I think that's so awesome. I think what's really cool is that just the side of the world that you grew up on, those countries are so much smaller and more condensed. And
Hmm.
when I was, anytime I go to Europe or travel anywhere, I'm always kind of jealous of people who are like, I speak 5 languages. And I'm like, how in the world? And here in America, we're lucky if we barely get through high school Spanish, right?
Yeah.
Because our country is so big, you don't really have to travel. And it's so funny. You mentioned recently that anytime I've gone to update my passport, I've always been blown away by how the person who's taking my picture and helping me like take the picture and do whatever doesn't have a passport herself. Like She never even thought of.
Oh,
And I'm sitting there, I'm
yeah.
like, "Oh my goodness, well, where would you wanna go if you could go? Or you should totally get it, like, just get your passport, and once you get your passport, then you can go travel." And I forget what the statistic is, but I think it's like 20 or 30% of Americans have their passport, which blows my mind away.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember someone sharing that statistic and I was like, "What?" Like I don't understand. It doesn't compute. It just doesn't for me it feels a bit like I feel claustrophobic like
Mm,
thinking about staying in one country and not being able to leave. Like actually I feel that way about like even when I'm in a city and it's hard to like reach the I guess like travel by bus or go to the train easily. I need all of those access points to be available so that whenever I feel like okay, I want to go to another city, it's available. I just hate the idea of not even having a passport. Like that just seems so crazy to me, but it's normal for many people. And I hope that changes because there are so many benefits to
mm.
traveling. Could we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think, at least from an American perspective, like as someone who grew up in a smaller town, we did not have a lot of money and like we drove a lot. We drove all over the US. And so the first time, and actually I remembered the first time I actually saved up for a trip was when I was a senior in high school when I was sitting in math class, and I hate math class, and I decided that I was going to go to Hawaii. And I looked over at a friend and I was like, "Hey, do you want to go to Hawaii with me?" And she was like, "Yes." And I said, "Great, I'll give you the details later." And so I went home. I looked up in a telephone book like travel agent, and I needed to research how much babysitting money I needed to save for a plane ticket to Hawaii. And I saved up my money and I went to Hawaii with my
Mhm.
friend, and it turns out with some family friends, so my parents felt comfortable letting me go to Hawaii. But just the idea, we left in a blizzard because I'm in
Mm.
northern Minnesota at the time. A blizzard. It took us 5 hours to drive, 2.5 hours. We barely made it. Then we arrive, and I was putting shorts on in the airplane bathroom because it was 70 degrees, 75 degrees, and sunny in Honolulu. And the benefits of traveling is it just, the obvious one is that opens your eyes up to like the world is really big. It is really big. And yet, because you travel, it is also really small.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's I think when you don't travel, it's massive, right? It's like
Mm,
huge. But then when you start traveling and you start meeting people, things become closer and closer and closer. You almost feel like that is part of your identity because that's how I feel. I don't feel like, oh, Morocco is another country. I feel
mm,
like it's part of me because I was able to go there and experience what it was like talking to someone from Morocco, eating their food, how they live, like how the streets look like, the language, and so on. So it makes me feel like that is a piece of me. Every time I travel, I always end up taking something
mm,
back with me. And over the years, it made me feel like it feels like I'm that type of person that when I do meet people, I have instant connection with them
mm,
because I've either been to their country, tasted their food in the UK. Because in London, you can almost experience every country here, similar to America. So I mean, whenever I go to restaurants, I do love to try different cuisines from different areas of the world. And for like actually that's like a good point to mention. One of the biggest reasons I love traveling, although like everything is cool about it, is the food. Like I
mm,
really do enjoy eating food from different countries and actually like taking it away with me. And I'm like, oh, okay. Now, like, I'm gonna take bastilla, which is like a dish in Morocco made out of this shrimp, and it's like shrimp with pastry, and then they put powdered sugar and cinnamon at the top, and it's so weird. Like, it's so good though. Like, it's so good. It's I've never tasted anything like it, but it was like, oh my God, this is like my new favorite dish. So for me, traveling is also to do with like experiencing more from that country and taking it back with me.
Absolutely. I think it's also cool to go to places, especially where, I mean, there's so much history, and I love history and love learning about it. But I think to go to places and be like, oh, this actually happened. Like the
Yeah.
Leaning Tower of Pisa in Pisa, like this is here, this is legit. Or, oh, Michelangelo painted that painting hundreds of
Mm,
years ago and that painting still exists. How many people did it take to like make sure this painting is still intact and now at the Louvre, let's say? Like
yeah.
travel lets you see like where we came from and how
Mm,
people like moved forward in life and just how things progressed in ways that you can't really appreciate when you're sitting on your laptop talking to friends. And yet how cool that you and you're in London, I'm in America, I'm in
yeah.
Minnesota, and we're using technology to like connect and then talk about our travel experiences. And so like think of all of the people who like, I don't know, I just think it's so cool. And I also love that I know that when I book my next flight and I land in London, I can come over and be like, Halima, I'm coming over, let's meet up.
Isn't that the best when you have friends all over the world during COVID and
Hmm.
like thinking, oh my God, like I really want to go to another country. And what is it called when you have like this like not travel bug, but there's when you have like this feeling.
Wanderlust.
Yeah, that's the word, wanderlust. This is a really good word. I felt that like a lot when during COVID time because we couldn't travel. And so I had to find different ways to travel. And one of the ways was my FLA students. They are from all like parts of the world, and they would share details about where they live, pictures about like of their food. And also I started
Mm.
making food from different um, parts of the world, which allowed me to feel like, okay, that's a piece of like, travel too. It's not just going to a different country. So for people that are listening that are unable to travel, I do believe that you can travel through language, food, and people. And Google Maps allows you to go to the destination these days. So I mean, apart from that feeling you get when you travel and you see and you actually touch and you are surrounded by the a different type of energy, a lot of the traveling can be done, a lot of the education and learning about different cultures from your own home. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah. And I think ultimately it's having a curiosity, right?
Mm.
So you can travel from your armchair and be like, I wonder what things are like in Paris and never actually go to Paris. Or you could actually hop on a plane and go to Paris and see it. But both situations require a level of curiosity about
Oh,
learning
I
about a
love
place.
that. I love that. Yes, curiosity is definitely the number one thing that gets you out of your seat, or even, I mean, just to research and check out like a place. Like, hey, I really want to know what it's like to go there. And you start researching and putting together a plan. And that's part of the experience, isn't it? Getting that excitement going. Where am I going to go? And planning it, for me anyway, like the planning part is part of like the traveling experience for me. For some people, they don't really enjoy planning. They just go there and they're like, okay, I'm just gonna go with the flow, and see where it takes me.
But
Yeah.
that's an interesting thing to bring up because my friend who I went to Europe with, she is a planner. She likes to kind of plan all the things. And I have realized for myself, I like to have like the main details kind of figured out, but I don't want it so planned out that I'm like, and then on Tuesday I do this, and on Wednesday I do this, because it makes it hard for me to enjoy being in the present moment today. Um, so that like and then like when you think about traveling with others, like there's so many aspects of travel, right? It's like what kind of traveler are you? How well do you travel with others? Who do you prefer traveling with? Because some people can you and I, let's pretend, could be like great travelers. I've heard people say, "Oh yeah, I love traveling with that person, but we could never be friends in our own hometown." But for some reason when they travel, they're like the best of they're like a perfect
Oh,
match. I don't
that's
know if
so
you've had
weird
that.
because I've heard the opposite. So the only way to know someone is by traveling with them. Like they say, travel with someone and you'll know everything about this person. And I find that to be very true because people that I've gotten along with, like in the UK or wherever I was at the time, turn out to be some like monsters when you like travel with them. You're like, oh my god, I didn't know you were so weird. So I find that traveling allows me to really get to know people too.
Well, and it lets you see like how comfortable is that other person outside of their comfort zones, right? Because travel
Mm,
I wish I could remember this quote, but it was a perfect travel quote. But when I the years ago when I turned 30, I decided to backpack around Scandinavia. So I was able to go around Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark. And I basically hit the major cities and then a little bit in the country, but I uh, I love drinking coffee. I always have a
me
cup of
too.
coffee in the morning, but I had the hardest time finding places that served a cup of coffee. Like here at the
What?
time I lived in Boston, and maybe I didn't know what how things were, but, like, at the time I lived in Boston, where every corner has a coffee shop, you go in, you get a ginormous coffee, you can add as much half and half and sugar as you want, and then you leave, and you walk around holding your ginormous cup of coffee. Every place I went to in the morning to get coffee was, like, this tiny little 8-ounce cup. You had to ask for half and half, like and it wasn't a walking around the city experience. And so I remember being like, "Oh, I'm so annoyed. Like, I want to have my big cup of coffee." And then I was like, that's the point of traveling. You're not supposed to live this comfortable life just like you live where
Yeah.
you live. That's the point. You aren't going to get, now I know you don't get a big cup of coffee when you're in Stockholm. And you better believe that the second I landed back in Boston, I went straight to Starbucks and got like a size medium coffee. And I was so excited to pour my creamer. But that's what travel does, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's I think when you travel with us others, you learn like, "Oh, whoa, this person is not comfortable eating foods that they've never had," or this person is
Yeah.
comfortable with missing a train, or this person isn't comfortable lugging their luggage around or whatever, right?
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, 1,000,000%. Like you also start to understand yourself, what things you're like attracted to, right? And what things that you're like, um, I don't know, like you like or you don't like, and so on. But let's move forward to now. Like, are you planning on traveling after, like, I mean, have do you have any plans to travel soon or in the future? And if you are planning on traveling, what is the country that you have your eye on?
Hmm. Well, in the middle of July, I am going to go to Washington D.C. to go see my brother.
Okay.
So that's going to be the first trip I've taken in a long time because of COVID.
Okay.
But I got married 5 months ago, and I really wanted, because we got married
A
in
honeymoon.
December,
Okay.
I really wanna go to the European Christmas markets, and I really wanna go to the Swedish Ice
What?
Hotel.
Okay. Okay, first of all, I have so many questions about that answer. So, why the European markets?
It just sounds really beautiful and fun, like shopping at these little stalls right before Christmas. I mean, that's
Hmm.
why I think that sounds fun.
Oh, so like those Christmas markets that they have.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And why the the ice hotel? Because I know about the ice hotel. It's pretty like neat, but what Why would you want to do that? Like, what is it like? I guess trying something different, or what is it for you?
I think
What?
it sounds cool. It's like, "Oh,
Okay.
we're going to stay at the Swedish ice hotel." Doesn't that sound cool? And I have been there. So when I was in Sweden, my family immigrated from Sweden to America back in the mid 1800s. And at the time, one of my cousins, who was 80 years old at the time, he lived in the house that my great 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 grandmother had been born in. So I got to go see that house, and he took me by the Swedish ice
Wow.
hotel. But it was in the spring, so I saw like chunks of it, kind of what it used to be. And it just sounds cool to go to Swedish ice hotel.
Yeah. I have so many questions about those hotels. I'm like, how do you sleep? And like, do you sleep on a block of ice? Like, is that okay?
But
Cool.
I think they have, like, reindeer hides, like, and pillows and other fur things, and I read up on it. You stay in a room that is made with ice, but, of course, they have blankets. I think they also give you, like, I don't know if it's, like, some sort of down sleeping bag body outfit, like a zip up
Mm.
sleeping bag thing, and then I think you keep your clothes in another room. The bathroom is in another room. So it's not like it's not like you're washing your hands in a sink made of ice.
Okay, so
But
it's almost like an igloo,
yeah,
like a
but
big
they call
igloo.
it a hotel. I'm curious, Halima, where would you want to go next now that the world is opening up again?
Yeah, I'm really excited to travel to different parts of the UK. I've started to become much more interested in places that I haven't been to. So I've been to Ireland, but I really would love to go to Wales. You know, so many people have said so many good things about it that I really I'm dying to visit, and all the different areas of England. It's kind of like someone in the US are like, oh, let's go and visit all the different 50 states. I've been to Scotland, so I want to kind of like like know that I've been to all the different seaside parts of the country, um, and just feel satisfied that I've seen those parts. Just because during COVID, that's all we could do. Like not even that at certain times, but it made me really think about what areas could I go to, like you know, during the quarantine. We had to really think outside the box and think, okay, where do you want to go next? Where do you but you can't travel, so where else could you go that you can still travel to by train? So I was like, okay, I really want to go to Wales. I want to go to places that I haven't been around the UK. Soon, I'm actually going to visit my friend who lives in Manchester. So I'm excited to just get on a train and go somewhere outside of London. I'm super excited to pack a suitcase wherever like. I could go to the next stop with my suitcase and I'll be so happy.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I recently put on my bucket list that I think it'd be really cool one day to buy a round the world plane ticket.
Yeah. Like I've never actually thought, yeah, I would love to buy, but that would be amazing. Which countries would you choose to visit that you haven't gone to already?
I would really like to go to Egypt because my family is from there.
Okay, so but if you go to Egypt, make sure you go to Luxor and Aswan
Okay.
because it is incredible there. I feel like that's my two favorite places in Egypt.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so Egypt. Let's see. So I put on my trip here, I put Paris. I know it's
Okay.
like so cliche and I've already been there, but whatever. Paris, um, Istanbul, Cairo, Tokyo, which I have been to, Johannesburg, Nairobi, Hong Kong, and Dubai.
Okay,
Those are
that
just starters, like it could be
that's a good
edited.
list. That's a good list. It's a really good list. I would love to go to Italy. I would love to go to Greece. I would love to go to Spain. Just places that I haven't been, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I haven't gone to Italy and tried their coffee from the street. Like that kills me inside. And like fresh pasta and fresh lasagna, right?
Oh
um
yeah.
yeah, so I would just love to go to these places, and also I want to go to Indonesia,
Mm.
and go to the islands there. I actually want to buy a place like near the beach in Indonesia, because I just think it's so beautiful. And there's one more place that I'm forgetting the name right now. Like I can't remember the name of this place, but it's like the cliche um honeymoon destination.
Bali.
Yeah. That was a good description by me. I would like to congratulate myself.
I think I have Bali on my list as well. Okay, can I ask you a question about a certain word?
Sure.
I love when people who are more on the European side will say, "Oh, I'm going on a holiday."
Okay.
Because you guys say holiday and we
Uh-huh.
say vacation.
Yeah. So I mean, it's exactly the same meaning. Like it's just different people in different areas of the world will like refer to it in different ways. So, but we never use vacation when in the UK. I mean, not to say the UK, because sometimes when I say the UK, I'm talking for people in Scotland and Ireland. So I try to say in London, like narrow it down to my postcode. But yeah, like growing up, I always heard people using the like word holiday to describe going on holiday. Vacation, we would hear it on when we're watching Christmas movies from the US. That's
Oh,
the only.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
The first time I would hear people talk about, "Oh, yes, we're going on holiday over here." And I'm like, that sounds so cool and awesome. Like, "Oh, we're going on holiday." Even though it's
yeah.
vacation, it sounds better, I think.
Yeah, and sometimes people also say staycation. And that's a word that's been traveling around since the COVID happened. And it's stay, like the verb stay with, I guess it's a like a vacation put together with stay, so it's staycation. It's informal, right? And it usually means having a like what I just described, um having a holiday like in your own country. So they I mean, that's the slang word for the word vacation, but like to mean that I want to go to a different part of England, or you want to go to a different part of the US.
That's so interesting because we say staycation here in the US, but to me, I've only ever heard it referred to as like we're staying at home, but we're going to do fun things near where we live.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So it's the same as well. You can That's exactly what it means, but I guess your country is like quite big, so when you say staycation, it's like, wait, if I go on the other side of like how long would it take you to go from one side of the US to another? That would no longer be classified, sorry, as a staycation anymore, because it would take you the same amount of time as me going to I don't know, Paris, like, which takes me 2 hours. But yeah,
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
the fact that it takes you 2 hours to get to Paris is, like, amazing, and as an American, that I'm very jealous of that. Do you ever stay in hostels?
yes, actually, that's where I stay mostly. I love staying in hostels because there are hostels that are absolute like travesty. Like I hate
Mm.
going to, but there are some that are super cheap, clean, and they have everything you need there. So I've been to like both different kinds. So I'm not opposed to like staying in hostels, especially if I'm budget traveling. But it's definitely something I do because it just makes sense. But recently, I've been more prone to staying in places like what's it called, Airbnb, right? That's like the
Mm,
new kind of like, instead of hotels, people, it's really affordable, and now they have Airbnb experience where people can cook in their homes for you, and people can, you know, take pictures of you, and you can actually book experiences, not just places to live. So
mm.
I love Airbnb. It's one of my favorite ways to like stay in different places around the world.
Which
Yeah.
is so interesting to think how technology can change how you experience a country. Because when I was backpacking, I mean, in Sweden, that was over 10 years ago. Going to Europe for the first time, that was like 20 years ago. And even though in my head it seems like yesterday, that was a long time ago. The iPhones did not exist
Yeah.
back in the time. And so that is interesting how technology can change. Even I was going to ask you, because when I was backpacking in Sweden, what I learned about myself was that I can have a max of 3 days where I do not feel super, super lonely. Like the second day 3 hits and I'm like, "Oh my word, I'm so lonely. I'm all alone. I should just book my ticket home. Like this is stupid. Why did I do this?" And I
Oh.
had a friend email me when I was in Copenhagen, and he goes, how's your trip going? And I said, I'm really lonely. And this is when email was kind of like you'd go to the train station and they had
Ah.
computers set up and
Oh.
stuff, so you had to pay to use the internet. And I emailed him, and so I told him I'm really lonely right now. And his response, which I got the next day, was embrace the loneliness. That's part of the travel experience. And I had never
Um,
thought about that before, and it felt better later on, like, okay, this feeling of loneliness is not unique to me, but is unique to
wow.
travel by themselves.
That is beautiful. That is such an amazing way to put it. Because it is the major issue why people like would not want to travel in the first place and wait for someone else before they decided to travel. Yeah, that's so cool.
And I think too, like, on that trip, like, I've never gone to India, like, that kinda makes me a little nervous. There are some countries I'm like, "I don't know if I would wanna go by myself,"
Yeah.
whereas, like, major cosmopolitan cities, I'm pretty comfortable doing on my own.
Mm.
Um So I do think it's really amazing, especially when women will be like, "Oh yeah, I traveled to these different countries all by myself." I'm like, "Wow." And yet people think I'm brave traveling by myself, and I'm like, "I'm not as brave as some other travelers." So it's like a different levels of comfortableness.
Yeah, like there's always somebody that will look at you and say, "Oh, like she's so brave. I would never be able to do that." And then someone else is like, "What? I don't understand like how you can I mean, that's nothing to me kind of thing or whatever." Like depending on the person and how much they've experienced, there's always someone that's experienced more than you and somebody that's experienced less. So yeah, so this has been an amazing conversation. I have thoroughly enjoyed it because I feel like it was just like so interesting to find out about your love for travel, and for someone that like I absolutely enjoy traveling. It was lovely, like it was so great to hear somebody else's experience. So I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing your experience with us, Anna. Anna, I would love to have people find you. Like, where can people find you if they're looking for you?
Sure. The easiest way is come find me over on Instagram, and my handle there is at Anna Y Nelson, ANNAYLE or NELSON, ANNAYNELSON. I can't believe I just misspelled my own name.
See, everybody, like everybody can make mistakes. It's fine. So I'm gonna put all her information in the show notes. Please, like for those of you listening now, go and message her and say, "Hi, I listened to your podcast and you're amazing." That would be so cool to see how many people do that. But yeah, we're gonna end this conversation and move on to the next part, which I'm going to be teaching you now how like what vocabulary we used and how we used it, so you can understand it a little bit better. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thanks
Bye.
for having me. Bye.
So before you go, Fearless Learner, I wanted to go over a few words to help you sound natural when you speak. And these words are the words I've mentioned in the conversation that you just listened to. First collocation I want you to focus on is go on a plane. Go on a plane. So, go on a plane is the natural way to say that you actually went on the vehicle, right? It's a large vehicle. Go on a plane. And then, past tense of that is went on a plane. Then, if you're planning to go on a plane, you say going on a plane. And these are all collocations that you can use naturally. Let's move on to the next thing. Have a passport. Another collocation for you to use. Remember, it's important for you to notice these collocations in language and also try to use it as much as you can. So the next collocation is have a passport. So have a passport is when you already have it. So I have a passport. And it's so we use this in our conversation. We said, I have a passport. Do you have a passport? Some people don't have a passport. And then the next collocation I want to add to that, which I think we mentioned in the conversation, but I'm also giving you extra collocations related to the word passports. So make sure you write it in your notebooks. So the first one is apply for a passport. Apply for a passport, which means that you either don't have a passport and you need one, or you need to renew your passport. That's another collocation. Renew my passport. So renew a passport. Renew your passport. So I need to apply for a passport because my passport has expired. So what does expired mean? So a passport expires means that when your passport is can no longer be used, right? There's a date on the passport, and if that date runs out, the expiry date runs out, then it's like you can no longer use that passport to travel or for any other uses. Expiry is another word that you should learn. It just means when something is can no longer be used, like expiry date on food. If it's on milk, you can no longer drink that milk. So you have to throw it away because it has passed the expiry date. Then I already mentioned renew a passport. Then check somebody's passport. So when you're at the airport, they check your passport. But before they check your passport, they ask you to show your passport. Another collocation. All right. So now we're done with passports. Let's move on to tourist. Right. So the word I used the word touristy, but I'll explain what that means in a bit. But first, let's look at the word tourist. Right. The word tourist is a noun, which is, according to Longman Dictionary, it's someone who's visiting a place for pleasure on holiday. And so that's like, keep that in your mind. So that's a person who visits a place for pleasure, for fun. And when I said touristy, the word touristy, it actually has a bad connotation. I don't like going to touristy places because they're usually full of people visiting that country. For example, the Eiffel Tower is a very touristic location. Um, and I don't like going to touristic locations because it's very touristy and I really hate it. I don't like lots of people taking pictures. I prefer going to places where it's non-touristy, like, so the opposite of touristy. So I like non-touristy locations because I enjoy visiting places that no one knows about. For example, if I went to a place that had no tourists, I would be able to enjoy it more. There'd be less souvenirs everywhere and tour guides running around. So for me, I prefer going to places that like isn't I mean that aren't popular with people. The next collocation is tourist attractions. So tourist attractions, like I said, the Eiffel Tower, the pyramids is a tourist attraction. So it attracts tourists to that area. So the Eiffel Tower is a major tourist attraction. Then tourist destination. So the whole place, the whole country, the whole city is a tourist destination, like Egypt. Egypt is a very popular tourist destination. Lots of people love to go and visit the pyramids. They just love the history. So it is definitely a tourist destination. Then let's move on to the next tourist season. So tourist season is a period of time, usually during the year, that people love to come to that country. So when is the best time for tourists to come to your country? Sometimes it's in the winter time because the weather is different, or when people have time off, that's when they will go to that specific location. When the weather is nice, whenever it is, that's when it's there's a lot of people visiting that place. Tourists visit that place a lot in that specific time of year. Okay, so that's done with the word touristy. Now let's move on to wanderlust. Wanderlust. So wanderlust is a noun and it describes it means that you have a strong desire to travel. Strong desire to travel. And it's similar to a travel bug. So travel bug is also a noun and it's similar to wanderlust. So for example, I could say Sarah has traveled to more than 20 countries. Her travel bug began when she was 12, for example. All right, so very similar. Then the next thing we mentioned was bucket list. So bucket list is a list of things you want to do before a certain age. So this is bucket list, or before you die. Those are the words that I want you to focus on today. So if you want to listen to the conversation again and pay attention to some of these words that I mentioned, then it will help you notice how we use it in context. So, what I want you to do now is go, and if you have to speak to yourself and start using these new words, then I would use it 1,000,000%. Like, here's a topic that you can talk about. When is the next time you're going to travel? Talk about anything related to travel and try to incorporate the new words that you've learned here. I hope you found this helpful. I'm so happy you're here and you've listened all the way to this point. I really do appreciate it. And I'll see you next week with another podcast. Peace. If you enjoyed today's lesson, then you'll love our speaking club, where we take what we learn in these lessons and put it into action. You'll get to meet other women and practice speaking English every week for an hour. All you have to do is go to www.blackboardenglish.com/cup. I'll say that again, www.blackboardenglish.com/cup. Let's work together to help you become a confident English speaker. See you in class.